You're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Welcome back, everybody, to RBLR Lightning. My name is Joe Bricker. Alongside me, it's Joe Zamataro. It's Matt Gannon. Guys, I'm back this week after taking an absence last week. Had a vacation. But this week, we're joined by, I want to say, a special guest. It's Vacation Joe. He's rocking the beautiful hat and the shirt. Guys, welcome back to the show. How you doing today?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I guess, you tagged back in, I tagged out a little bit. I was going to joke that I've been playing with the green screen and a little bit of, see if the background focuses for us. But, down the keys, happy to still be able to join you guys.
So you guys mean to tell me this isn't the RBLR fishing podcast? That was an April Fool's joke, Eureka. I'm a little disappointed here. No, all seriousness, always happy to be back for the show, especially with a good week like we have upcoming. Jake, you had it easy last week. You didn't have to cover 3 straight losses. You get 2 shutouts in a 1-goal game, man. Life's good for you.
Well, you know what? Maybe I'm the good luck charm here. I come back and now we got 3 wins to talk about. Speaking of those 3 wins, what do you say we jump right in? There's no news or updates in the roster situation going on. Luckily, the Lightning, knock on wood, have not had to deal with any injuries or anything like that. So everything is going as normal for the Lightning there. But let's jump into those game recaps because we got a lot of great games to talk about here for the Lightning. Guys, I'm sure you talked about this. You did talk about this on last week's episode with that game against Boston. It really felt like the Lightning started to play their game. And it kind of felt like, oh, hey, the Lightning are starting to gear up for a playoff run here. And I think this week continued it. They then took on the Carolina Hurricanes, who are a very good team, and they played fantastic. They took down the Hurricanes 4-0 in this game. Vasilevsky picks up a shutout in this game. Steven Stamkos, Braden Point twice, and Alex Killorn all getting in on the scoring. And guys, just kind of a dominating game from the Lightning against a huge opponent.
Yeah, this was one I definitely didn't have on my bingo card, especially considering the last game against Carolina. Granted, they had Svechnikov back then, or maybe he was out still, but regardless, Carolina is they're a top tier team. They're a heavy, high caliber style of play, but for whatever reason, they've been reeling recently at the wrong time, and the Lightning capitalized. They took advantage of it, carried the momentum they built from that Boston game, and just imposed their will throughout on the Hurricanes throughout the entire game. So it's not out of the blue per se, but it was definitely a performance I wasn't particularly expecting. So of course it's a pleasant welcome surprise for sure, but I'm just happy to see momentum being carried over from the good Boston loss through the Hurricanes game and throughout the rest of the entire week. So it was a near, I won't even say near flawless. It was essentially a flawless game. So just happy to see some good quality traits really starting to stick with the team coming in at the right time.
I instantly just was transported back to being a kid with Mortal Kombat. Flawless victory. It was a really good performance by the team, especially on the heels of that Boston game. Like you said, the big thing that we've said for the past couple of weeks here is if you're going to lose a game, lose it the right way. We covered Boston last week, but there's no doubt that they lost that game the right way and then carried that style of play into the next week. Now, that's not to say that they were perfect. They certainly weren't. They gave a ton of chances to Carolina where Carolina couldn't finish. The shots on goal were 31 for the Hurricanes, only 21 for the Lightning. But they were able to hold on well enough. And Vasy played so ridiculously strong that the scoreboard was, nothing but blue up there.
Yeah, just a near perfect game, as you guys mentioned. The Lightning go 0 for 1 on the power play. They do go 2 for 2 on the penalty kill. I think the bigger story from the forwards from this game is Braden Point, who picks up his 46th and 47th goal of the season. He had 3 total points in this game. Killorn was huge in this one too, with he having a goal and he had 2 total points in there. Sorry, 1 point in this game, but he still played really well overall, and the captain getting in there. So really a top 6 performance from the Lightning in this one, the big guys getting it done, and the Lightning pick up a huge 2 points against a very, very good team against the Carolina Hurricanes. They would then go on to take the Washington Capitals, who are in a very different situation from the Hurricanes. They were still in the playoff race. They still are in the playoff race, but, a little bit further out than some of the other teams. And the Lightning, again, take care of business as they win this one by a final score of 5-1. Lightning got off to an early lead. Washington then fought back a little bit, but the third period, it was all Tampa Bay, and they get home with another big win here. And now after this one, we're just 2 points away from clinching a playoff spot.
And despite, like I said about the Carolina game, it was a very dominant game. 4-0 shutout. There's no qualms about it. The Lightning really carried themselves in that game, but there were some mistakes. Like Joe said, they definitely weren't perfect. It was not a flawless victory. This game was about as close as you can really get to it. It seemed like the Lightning really just were not letting the Capitals get anywhere. They weren't letting them do anything at all. Despite it being a 5-1, it wasn't a shutout. I still think it was probably a better game all around for everybody. And I still don't think it might have been the best, most complete game of this week. I can't wait to get into the Islanders game, but it was like I was harping on in my first tirade there. It's traits being carried over, just kind of expanding on. I guess, that's how I'll put it, is each of the last 4 games, we've seen better and better and better and better. I think this was just kind of a continuation of that. The one goal that did get past Vasilevsky, I'm not going to call it a fluke goal. It was definitely a skill play by Craig Smith, but it's one you kind of, Vasy wants back, but it's not like you got beaten cleanly or anything like that. It was kind of a scramble play. He shoveled it into the net, wraparound type of deal. I'm not going to fault anybody on that. It's just kind of a fluky play. But I will say that everybody really showed out in this game. They cleaned a lot of things up. They didn't have as many takeaways, or they had more takeaways, less giveaways, just a little bit better, a little bit more refined performance, I would say, throughout, the entire game. Similar to the Carolina game, but just a little bit better. Also helps being at home. I think gives them a little bit more mojo. And you know what? The goal that did come against Vasilevsky, it put a little salt into the game. It made it a little bit interesting for a moment, gave the Capitals a little bit of hope just to crush it. I know you really loved that, Jake.
I did. I'm not a big Capitals fan, but so it did give me a little bit extra joy for sure.
One thing we also saw in that game was Alexander Ovechkin had his season high in hits. He had 11 hits in that game. He was going out trying to do everything he could to get his Caps back in it. And when he couldn't, he just started burying bodies. And even doing that, the Lightning were resilient, and it didn't really seem to impact, the breakout. Our defensemen are pretty well able to handle themselves, even when they're getting checked that hard. And our forwards were taking it in stride, because when Ovi hits people, like he can lay a hit. Like, it's one of the hardest hitters in the entire league. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to guess his weight. It used to be listed as like 220, 230 or something like that. Who knows what he is this season. But yeah, he's got a lot of mass and a lot of speed coming your way, but the guys played through it. And the goal that went in on Vasy, it was like that like a wraparound, could have gone on either side of the net. That's just bad luck for Vasy there. And the funny thing is that I feel like Vasy's had some really bad luck for a lot of this season, and the past 2 games, he's been seeing some shots, and some of them were in messy areas, right in front of the net where there's some strange bounces, but he was able to get the puck away from the crease, or just make sure that his body was there. There was one that went across the front of the crease there, in the slot for a backdoor play to someone that was wide open, and they shoveled it completely out the other side of the net without it hitting Vasy. And he's been getting a lot better puck luck in general in these past couple of games. That one was, unfortunate, but I think with him sharpening up, bounces start going your way when you play a little bit better as well.
And I guess we can kind of touch on this a little bit later as well, but one thing I think is a factor in Vasilevsky's better play as of late, not taking anything away from him, I'm actually going to give him some credit here. He deserves all of it. But I think the entire team, defensemen and forwards, are just playing a lot better team defense inside of their own zone. They still have a couple issues in the neutral zone and getting back into their zone, but one thing that's kind of been their Achilles heel throughout the entire year is that they collapse rather easily when things are going wrong, when there's a lot of chaos in the zone. They can't control it very well in the defensive zone. If there's a lot of scramble play in front of the net, they don't really, they've been kind of holding their sticks a little too tight and choking on getting the puck out of the zone. They've really cleaned that up recently over these the last week or so. They've really helped everybody out, and it just kind of trickles down to helping your goalie out. That's the guy you want to help out the most. So I think there's just been a lot better team defense in the actual defensive zone.
Yeah, there's something to be said about just having confidence and swagger in general. It makes things go just that much more smoothly where you're not overthinking a play. Things start to develop more naturally, and we're certainly starting to see that.
Defense looked good. Vasilevsky looked good. But how about our guy, Pat Maroon? He comes through with 2 huge goals in the third period. And I know some might say, well, they were kind of just lucky bounces and he pushed them in. But hey, right place, right time. He's working hard, being right in front of the net and being a presence. And I think he's rewarded with 2 big goals. I really liked Pat Maroon's game in this one. And also, we haven't mentioned him quite yet because he's just never on the score sheet that often. But Bellemare also played 2 really good games. He was great this whole entire week, which we'll get to the last game in a moment here, but he was great in this one as well.
If we're giving out love, we can't forget to mention Sorelli to generate the rushes for those 2 goals for Patty. I mean, yeah, there's guys that we haven't had the opportunity to sing their praises very often this season, especially when you've got guys like Pointer and Kucherov and Hagel. Geez, every week it seems like they're just doing such magic out there that it overshadows some of the other players. But yeah, those guys are absolutely critical.
And one sour theme throughout the week is I feel like Hagel, I mean, he's been playing really well, but he's been kind of getting the short end of the stick on some penalties. I feel like he's had some bad calls against him recently. There was the one phantom trip in one of these games. I can't remember what it was, or phantom hook. The goalie interference penalty was the first penalty of the game. Do you guys remember that? He gets, or he backs into
where he runs into the goalie
out of the crease.
You know the rule. If you run into the goalie, you get the penalty. That's how it works in the NHL.
Maybe the backs of his skates were in the blue paint, maybe on the edge there. Joe is typically right on these, but man, I think that
he was. I'm not going to disagree that he was out of the crease, but it doesn't necessarily make the goalie fair game. And I think that Hagel really kind of lost his position on the ice, even if he was the goaltender was further back in the crease, he still was going to end up making contact. He just kind of lost his positioning. Was it worthy of a penalty? That can also be debated because it wasn't like he slammed into him, and when he made contact, it was at outside the crease. But you can't touch the goalie. You just you got to avoid that.
My thought, you know what? If you're going to give Hagel a penalty, cool. But Darcy Kemper also started to, he was smothering him. He hopped on top of him after they both fell down to the ice. Then another Capital player jumped in. It wasn't, a total 2-on-1 beatdown or anything like that. But I think it could have been.
Would have been appropriate.
Should have been worthy of a matching 2 minutes on the goalie's behalf. So that's my gripe. I just think it's been a little bit of a theme this week, and I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Well, you know what? I don't think it became as big of a deal just because the Lightning were playing so well overall and still up on the scoreboard. They get a big win here. I talked about how it was the top 6 kind of game against Carolina. This time, a lot of the bottom 6 players stepped up in a big way, and 2 huge wins for the Lightning. And then they get set to take on the New York Islanders, who are also fighting for their playoff lives. They currently sit in the first wild card spot as of right now, and they're looking to try and keep their season alive, but they run into the Lightning and they take them down by a final score of 5-0. It's another huge win in a Vasilevsky shutout. And there's a lot that happened in this game, guys. We had Tanner Jeannot pick up his first goal as a Bolt. He's been looking for that goal for so long, it feels like, and he makes a great play where he was right in front of the net, taps it home, and gets his first as a Bolt. Braden Point, he's at 48 goals on the season now. Sergachev and Stamkos and Kucherov all getting involved in this one, and the Lightning come up big. They go 3 for 3 on the penalty kill and 1 for 2 on the power play. Guys, this was like a near perfect week, I felt like, for the Lightning.
Did you also take note of the face-off dominance in this one? And that's, man, when you have possession of the puck, it really changes a lot of things. 61% for the Lightning, 39% for the Islanders on the face-offs. And the Islanders still outshot the Lightning 38-32. But could you imagine what a difference it could be if you don't have possession of the puck, how much more the Islanders could have had opportunities there? So just, again, kind of goes to show you where you dominate in the face-off, you're going to limit the other team on their chances. And I think that really helped the Lightning a lot, even though that the Islanders were out shooting them.
Yeah, this game, nothing feels better than beating the Islanders to me. They're one of my top 3 just despised teams, but I have to respect them a little bit. But man, this game felt good. It felt good. It was kind of anyone's game in the first. The Lightning scored first. It was Mikhail Sergachev. Just threw a shot on net, hit off an Islanders defenseman, ended up in the net. But even still, after being up 1-0, it was anybody's game heading into the second. And despite, I'd say, the Lightning, the stats show they got outplayed in that second, but it was the Lightning's period. I mean, that's when everything went wrong for New York. I don't know if I can attribute it to Ilya Sorokin having a really bad night or something. I didn't think he played all that terrible. There were some good goals against, but it was a collective team effort. Like you alluded to, Jake, you were saying the Carolina game was a top 6 kind of game. The Washington game is a bottom 6 kind of game. This was everybody coming together, converging at once, and being a one big homogenous team, a homogenous specimen, just imposing their will again. But Tanner Jeannot finally getting on the board, that's got to feel. Brian Engblom said it best. He said it's not getting the monkey off your back, it's getting a silverback gorilla off your back. I mean, that's got to feel great. And like you also mentioned him before, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, he had a fantastic game. He had a really good week, but this game, he was everywhere. He looked like, 10 years younger than he actually was. We got to remember, this guy's 38 years old and still an NHL caliber player. He's picking up his pace. He's picking up his his compete level throughout the season. I think he's still got a little bit more to give, but he played really well throughout this game, especially on some kind of jumbled lines as well. But
I think just quick before you talk about another player with Bellemare specifically, that might be why we're seeing Eyssimont not getting as many reps as of late, which we can talk about more later. But we've mentioned Bellemare a couple of times throughout these past couple games too.
And I guess to cap it off, he somehow didn't make the star list this week. He's got some tough competition. He's on here every other week, but Nikita Kucherov might have had one of his best games of the year. He didn't put up 6 points, a hat trick, and everything else, but it seemed like every single one of his passes, he was passing with intent, he was back checking, he was responsible, and just doing everything with a clear purpose, a clear headspace, if you will. He wasn't angry, upset, or whatever it might be. It's hard to be upset when you're going to win 5-0, but he was just electric this entire game. He honestly was kind of the captain of the game. I don't know how you really put it, but he was the lifeblood of the team throughout the entire game. So I know I did say it was everybody chipping in, one big homogenous unit all together, but Kucherov might have had one of his finest games of the year in this Islanders game.
He played great. He got 2 points in that game. You know who else got 2 points in that game and was a +3? Your boy on defense? Say his name.
Aaron Radish with his first 2 NHL points. Good for him. You guys really sold me on him. He's been excelling.
Wonderful.
Hey, you guys were talking about in last week's episode that you think Zach Bogosian is going to jump into the lineup come playoff time, and I want to talk about this more later. But Darren Radish is making a case for himself, and he had another great game against the Islanders. He's still got a long way to go, but good for him to really get into it here and start playing really well. I have a question for you guys. Now that Tanner Jeannot has scored his first goal, I thought Jeannot has played really well for a while now, and he's been, even though he has been on the score sheet, he's been really physical and contributed in that way. But now he scores. Do you think the floodgates open up a little bit here we still going to see a little bit of a, feeling out process of him getting used to being on the Lightning?
I don't think the floodgates have necessarily opened, but confidence does a lot for you, and I think it's going to do a lot for him because he's been getting better looks. He's been driving a little bit harder to the net. The Washington game, he got robbed by Kemper one time and whiffed on another chance, I want to say, but he was getting into prime scoring positions and making offense and making plays. So I think, just getting this goal against Ilya Sorokin, you also got to factor in who you scored against. I think it'll do a lot for his confidence. We all know nobody wants to drop the gloves with him. We were all hoping we saw, him and Tom Wilson go. That would have been electric. But I think it will be a big confidence boost for him. But I don't think he's going to be, putting up. He's not going to score in every single game for the rest of the year. But hey, maybe he could be another. Surprise hero in the playoffs, kind of like Nick Paul was last year. That may be my guess.
Yeah, I definitely think you hit the key word there with confidence, and that's way more important than him scoring a significant number of goals coming up here. He's going to have confidence in his game because now he's got that first one over and done with, doesn't have to think about it anymore. And we don't need him to score a ton of points. We need him to be somebody that's difficult to play against, and that's what Coop was saying when he was acquired, or actually I think it was a Cooper quote. It could have been JBB, but it is important that he plays strong, like a real physical, strong game, and wears down the other team. And putting in pucks is a bonus. And it's again, when you score goals, you feel like you're contributing, but that's not necessarily the most important contribution he can make. It just is going to help boost that confidence, like Matt was saying.
From this game, Alex Killorn played in his 800th game against the Islanders. So congratulations to Alex Killorn to play 800 games at such a high level as he has with the Lightning, all with the Lightning as well, is very impressive. So shout out to Alex Killorn for this one. But also the Lightning 2 points, and they officially clinch a spot in the NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup for 2023. It is their 6th consecutive Stanley Cup playoff appearance. So they are on a hot streak once again. And guys, it is now time to gear up for the NHL playoffs. And by the way, to our listeners, if you're looking for some gear to get ready for the postseason, make sure you head over to RBLR Sports, shop.rblrsports.com, and check out our awesome merch we got over there for you guys. Lightning merch, Rays merch. We even got some new themed Rays merch, the boots on and arms crossed. It's love some awesome stuff over there for you guys. Be sure to go check it out. Use code BOLTS for 10% off your order. It's awesome inspired merch for each of the teams. Be sure to go check it out and gear up for the postseason as we get closer and closer here. So guys, are you excited for the postseason? How are you feeling now after 3 big wins from the Lightning? And, did we get rid of those bad vibes that we had from that tough losing streak?
I am cautiously optimistic. The sample size has been way too small in order to come in with extreme confidence that the Lightning are in playoff shape and ready to excel at the caliber that we are used to. The past 4 games have been about as great as you could hope for, considering where we were, a week ago, for instance. The team, though, I want to see if there's 77. I mean, pull up. There's 6 games left. You guys help me out with that.
I think 5 games. 5 games.
5 games. 5 games left. If they continue to play well in 4 out of those 5 games, then I think that that's actually what they need to be ready, because Toronto has everything in the world to prove, especially from top down. When you're talking about the general manager that went absolutely nuts coming up to the trade deadline, all the way to, like Austin Matthews and just the fans in general. They haven't exited the first round, and you guys can probably quote how many years. They have a lot more to lose, a lot more to prove, so they're going to be coming in with some desperation. The Lightning have been there and done that, 3 consecutive appearances in the Stanley Cup. So I'm hoping that they're on the right track. Am I excited for the playoffs? Absolutely. Do I think the Lightning are 100% ready? Not quite yet. We need these final games.
I'm happy I let you go first, Joe, because the 2 words you used were just perfect. Cautiously optimistic. You couldn't have said it better. That was great. But that's exactly, I think, everybody's feelings going into this. I don't think anybody is really saying we're ready to take on anybody anytime, anything like that. But everybody's on the same page saying, yeah, we're looking better. We can still improve a little bit, but we know we can go toe-to-toe with any team. We don't know if we can beat every single team, but we know the team's got it in them. We just want to see maybe a little bit more consistency heading into the playoffs, but cautiously optimistic. You said that perfectly. Correcting one thing you did say, Toronto, I know the standard is extremely high. They've got the weight of the world on their shoulders, but I don't think they have everything to lose. They've got nothing to lose. That's a dangerous team. I mean, the standard is high, but at the same time, is anybody going to be surprised if they lose in the first round again? Absolutely not. So they have a lot more to play for. I think the Lightning have more to lose. I think the standard is still higher with them. The bar isn't quite as high for the Leafs. They have a little bit less to lose, but still, you put it very well. That's what makes me nervous is the Lightning. They play better as underdogs. They were kind of underdogs last year. Everybody doubting them. They were having some injury issues. And same goes as the year before. Can they make it to the finals again? They ended up doing that again. So now everybody kind of knows, wow, this team really is a dynasty. It's one of the best teams we've seen this generation. Hopefully, I don't know. All I'm saying is they play better as underdogs. I know the Leafs are a better team on paper this year, but I just hope they don't get a little overzealous here.
Those are very fair assessments. I think I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. I'm stoked for the playoffs, and I think the Lightning are ready to go because, to me, that slump, listen, it was what the Lightning have been doing for the last 3 years. This is them turning it right back on right at the right time with 5 games left to go. I think it's only going to get better, and I think they're going to be 100% ready for the postseason. And I know, Matt, you guys are saying that, I don't know if we can beat anybody. I think we can beat anybody. Let's go back to the Stanley Cup once again. The biased Bolts fan in me is coming out. I'm ready for the postseason, and I can't wait.
I don't know that you can qualify them as underdogs, though. Ever since the 18-19 season, despite getting swept, that was a dominant team in the regular season, and they learned their lesson in the postseason and have been a dominant team in the postseason ever since. If you look at the responses from players around the league, I have a pretty strong feeling that if surveyed, they would tell you that as a week or two ago when the Lightning weren't looking that great, is the Lightning, which team scares you the most? The Bolts would still be pretty high up on the list. They're never going to be underdogs in this era. And
underdog might have been the wrong word, but there's been a lot of doubters going back to that 2019 season. And so, yes, I may have misphrased
respectfully,
that. But
I think those doubters are just fans. The players on the ice know who they're going up against, and I don't think anyone's going to look at the Lightning and think that they're going to breeze into the next round with the matchup.
So I don't know. Let me elaborate a little bit. But going back to even before the 2019 season, let's go back to the 2018 season where they lost to the Capitals. They choked that series. They were up 3-2 and got shut out in back-to-back games. They choked that series. Whatever. Let's repack. They have a world-beating season the next year. They choked that season against Columbus. There were a lot of factors that played into it, a lot of factors that played into the year before, and they were labeled as chokers. They're not going to ever win anything in this league. Then they were a very good team. The 2019-2020 season, the world shut down, and then, okay, cool, they win the Stanley Cup. They won it in the bubble. Doesn't count. Oh, cool, shortened season. They won the Stanley Cup. Doesn't count. They only played 56 games and then coasted into the playoffs. Doesn't count. all right, well, prove us wrong this year. They make it back to the Stanley Cup Finals, and I think a lot of people are finally like, okay, I got to stop doubting them. So it's not underdogs, but a lot less doubt, I'll say. I think a lot of people are taking them. It's no secret. They know that they're the best team in the league, but there isn't quite as much doubt that they've got that dog in them.
They're since I want to say it was 2015 maybe, with the one exception of that 18-19 year, every single Stanley Cup has had to run through Tampa. Every single winner has had to go through Tampa in order to win. Think about it. Every single team that's won had to, except for when the Blues won it, because you had Pittsburgh that had to beat the Lightning. Then we lost to Chicago. Was it the Capitals that then won it? And then maybe Pittsburgh again, and we lost. I mean, I'm probably getting the years mixed up, but every single cup has had to come through Tampa for the last, was that 7 years now, with the one exception.
With the exception of Columbus.
And also the year that they missed the playoffs, 16-17, but that was just the season from hell. Even the regular season from hell. The postseason from hell was.
I missed it on the last. That one came down to the wire. It's like the last.
They missed
game
it by
of
a
the
point.
season.
They missed it by a point, and they couldn't have been on. I think this would have been their 10th consecutive appearance in the postseason. So what could have been, but what we do know is the Lightning are on a huge run. They're looking to get back to the Stanley Cup Finals once again for their 4th year in a row, and they've clinched their spot in the playoffs right here. And as John Cooper said, listen, you can't win the Stanley Cup if you're not in the postseason. So the Lightning have gotten that first step done. Hey, let's talk about some of our 3 stars from this week. And guys, last week when we were talking about, it's kind of hard to pick some stars. Now we had too many players to pick from. There were so many guys that played so well, but here are our 3 that we thought stood out the most. And at number 3, it's the captain, Steven Stamkos. Stamkos had an excellent week overall. He was scoring some big goals. He finishes with 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 total points, was a +6 for the team, one of the highest. He was fantastic in this game, and he gets the 3rd star of the week.
That's 2 game-winning goals from him as well. He got the game-winning goal in the Carolina game and the Washington Capitals game. And I'd say this is going to sound a little weird, but it was a quiet, great week. Despite having 2 game-winning goals, they weren't, the craziest, flashiest goals or anything like that, but he kind of flew under the radar. I mean, there's a reason why he's the 3rd star, because he's got some very, very, very tough competition to be able to get that 1st star. So maybe not a quiet, great week, but definitely one that isn't quite as highlighted as the 2 others here. But man, he's been spectacular this week. Everybody picking their game up at the right time, and he was scoring some big goals again. 2 game-winning goals, despite them being blowout losses, they still count. So hats off to my captain.
Yeah, it just got a little bit louder where I'm at. Some people come over playing ping pong, so if it's too distracting, let me know. But with Stamkos scoring, he's starting to do it in ways that just, again, puck luck is a real thing. He scored the one that was like off his heel, the pass across that came to him, and then his best goal of the week though is, I think, the face-off win with in the second period there. There wasn't much time on the clock, right? There was the
less than 5 seconds.
Yeah, 4 seconds on that one, and those are devastating going into an intermission and just getting scored on, especially when it's because it was a face-off loss. Again, face-offs are so important. The Lightning have really scored a lot of goals on face-off wins, especially from Kucherov. I wonder if there's a stat that's ever kept on shots that are generated from face-off wins. But
that would be interesting stat for sure.
Yeah, and they're man, you feel those right in your stomach, like you just got punched in the gut when you get scored on like that. It's the worst feeling to get scored on off a face-off, and that's a huge goal. It's a huge momentum swing, and Stamkos has that shot, man. If he's able to get the look at the net to fire it home.
It's amazing. A couple of years ago, some people were talking about how Stamkos might be washed up. He's getting old. He's dealing with all these injuries. And yet again, he just keeps coming back with these great performances. He was huge this week. But with that said, we'll go to our second star of the week, and that is going to Braden Point, who also had 3 goals and 3 assists for 6 points, was a +5. But guys, he is 2 goals away from hitting the 50 mark this season. He has had an unbelievable year. He's breaking a bunch of his own records. And, when he got hurt in that postseason last year, it was a big loss for the Lightning. And it seems like he's come back better than ever.
I was actually having a conversation with one of my buddies a day or two ago. Do we think that Braden Point is going to hit 50? What do you guys think?
Yes,
absolutely. He's only 2 goals away with 5 games to go. I would be surprised if he doesn't.
Well, I mean, if you guys, I'm not sure if you remember, but Vinny Lecavalier scoring his 50th, that took him almost 10 games to get to it, and it was one of, I don't know, I think it's probably the ugliest 50th goal ever scored in the NHL. Vinny comes in on the right side, being a left-handed shot, does a spinorama at the top of the circle, like just kind of flicks it backhand on the ice to beat the goaltender for his 50th. That's not scoring for 10 games. I would love for Braden Point to get a real pretty one. And I think that if he does get it, I hope he gets it early so it's not a whole thing, right? Don't let it be a build up to the 50th. Let it be something that he gets and then exceeds. I would love to see him get to 52 like that same season with Vinny. 52, get that number. So it's, he's not focused on this number 50 goals, and he's fully ready. And again, the word confident going into the playoffs here.
That's a good point. Look what happened to Stamkos when he was trying to get that 500th goal. It took him a while to hit because it just seemed like he was gripping that stick a little too tight. But I don't know if that'll happen. Hopefully not. Hopefully Point can hit it relatively quickly and hit that big 50 goal mark.
And what have I been calling Braden Point really this entire season? He's been captain consistent. Of course, he's always captain clutch. He's one of the most clutch players on the team in the league, but he's been very, very consistent. I want to know what his longest dry spell this year was. I can totally see that happening, but I only have one question, and it's why? Why is Braden Point the most underrated player in the NHL? He's about to have a 50-goal season. Not a soul is talking about it. I mean, it's kind of not unfair, of course, but he's on pace to shatter 50 goals. Not shatter, but to hit that mark. It's you tell me that 5 years ago, you'd be calling me crazy. But he gets no respect, no love from the league. He's one of the most electric players. Every goal is a highlight reel goal. Of course, the goal that bounces off of Stamkos' skate, nobody cares about that. Braden Point only scores highlight reel goals. He's just captain electric, captain consistency, and captain clutch.
Even one of those goals that he scored this week, he was behind the net and banked it off the goalie from behind in order to put it in. So, that wasn't luck. That wasn't it hitting off your skate and going in. That was a skilled play. But I do have an answer for you. And I think there's another player in the league that I can reference that I personally have a bias against that I feel similar. The answer is Nikita Kucherov. Nikita Kucherov is the reason that Braden Point will be overlooked and underappreciated. Now, Kuch is somebody that often is overlooked because he's not very flashy in the way that he plays the game. He's by far the smartest player, or at least passer in the game, and I don't think it's even close. But the thing is, when you've got somebody of that caliber on your line, you start to discount other guys, even if you don't know what you're necessarily talking to. And the person that's kind of like that, in my opinion, he might be an amazing player and has accolades, but I kind of feel that way for Draisaitl when he's playing with McDavid, that, I don't really necessarily appreciate Draisaitl as an elite player. And I think it's mostly just because of who he's playing with. And maybe that's what's happening with Point. He's getting overlooked because of the fact that he's playing with Nikita Kucherov.
And I know we're going off on a tangent here. We'll get to our first star. It'll be no surprise. But I think you're on the right path there, Joe. And I did just now come to the conclusion, thanks to you. But I think what it might be is the oversaturation of the star players. I mean, they've got names like Stamkos, like Vasilevsky, like Hedman, and like Kucherov, of course. I think it might be a little bit of oversaturation because if you look at Edmonton, they have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. I know Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is having an amazing year, but really it's those two and their merry band of men. They can cover those two a lot easier. I really just truly do think it might be the oversaturation of stars.
I think it's partly due to how many guys are having great seasons this year too. I mean, listen, Point is already on a team stacked full of superstars, and Connor McDavid's at 62 goals, Pasternak's at 56, Draisaitl's at 50, Rantanen's one away from hitting 50. So there's a lot of guys that are playing really well, and unfortunately, Point gets buried in it. But there's no question that he is having a fantastic season.
To bring it real quick before you go to the next guy, to bring it full circle, this might be the area where the guys are underdogs in a sense, where you have players that go under the radar while the team itself. There you go, Matt.
You're absolutely right. But I'll tell you who was not looked at as an underdog this week, and that was Andrei Vasilevskiy, who gets the first star of the week here on RBLR. Guys, he was fantastic, going 3-0-0. He had a .99 save percentage and a .33 goals against average, only giving up the one goal in that game against the Capitals. I mean, he almost had 3 shutouts this week. Vasilevskiy is in playoff form right now, and he's been playing out of his mind. And it's funny, I think earlier in the season, a lot of people would have said Vasilevskiy is not having his best season right now, but he comes out huge this week and gets 3 massive wins for the Bolts.
He's really tailored his game to where this might be the wrong word to use, but he kind of paces himself.
You don't have your ding laying out, right?
He paces himself. I truly do think he's not a regular season goalie anymore, but we saw how much of a world beater he was back in 18-19 when he was even coming up. He was an elite backup goalie. He saves it for the playoffs now. There's undisputed nobody would rather have another goalie than Andrei Vasilevskiy on their team. You can argue Igor, you can argue Ilya, but you're arguing for second place.
I didn't want to. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, you can't even argue it.
No.
No question.
It is objective. So there really is no argument. Come playoff time, he's a different animal, and he's just giving us a taste of what's to come.
And I think it is pretty fair to say that this was not his best season. And, I've been questioning him for a few weeks that, the goaltender position, seeing him look frustrated at times, is like a different thing than disinterested. He's looked like he's been trying very hard and then will get scored on, almost like he doesn't have a solution for it. And that's just from an outside observer, obviously. And my question was, can he just turn it on? Is it possible as a goaltender to just turn it on come playoff time? And again, it's too small of a sample size to definitively say, but the past 4 games, again, including Boston in that one, he's been Vasilevskiy. That's the only way to describe him. He's been Vasy.
That's a great way to put it, is that he hasn't been good. He's been Vasilevskiy, because that's how great Vasilevskiy's been. Well, he gets the first star of the week here on RBLR. We'd love to hear from you guys as well. Don't forget to follow us at RBLR Lightning and at RBLR Sports. Let us know what you guys think about the 3 stars. Would you have put anybody else in there? Would you have changed the order? We love to hear from you guys. Let us know your thoughts on the 3 stars. But it's Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, and Andrei Vasilevskiy for us this week. And guys, as we get closer and closer to the playoff season, I want to revisit something that about last week, and that was, what might this starting lineup look like for the Lightning come playoff time? You guys were talking about Bogosian and Radish and who might get in there. I want to ask you this. Do you think anything has changed now that we've seen more of Radish this week and how well he's played? And what about Isamon? We were kind of mentioning him a little bit earlier. He hasn't played recently. Is he going to get into the lineup come playoff time? What do you guys think?
Well, like I was, like kind of the issue we were having earlier in the year, I wouldn't call it an issue, but it was an embarrassment of riches on defense. We had such a surplus of guys, and now it's kind of thinned out a little bit. Myers got sent down. Hayden Fleury was playing a lot more earlier in the year. He's been used pretty sparingly now, especially with the emergence of Darren Radish. But I'd like to see Bogosian play a couple more games and maybe gauge his performance heading into the playoffs. Maybe sit Radish a couple of games, just possibly. That's kind of what I'm throwing out there. But I want to know what we have, and I think the coaches and staff are all on the same page. We want to know what we have, so we want to be confident heading into game one. And you know what? Maybe even if game one doesn't work out in our favor and there are glaring holes on defense or at forward or something like that, if somebody is just truly the weakest link, they have backup options at both positions. Not even just going with one backup option at each position. We've got good depth. I mean, if even Asamont isn't really working out, we can call up Rudy Balsers or God forbid Alex Barry-Boulet plays a game for this team. But and same thing on defense. If the Bogosian experiment isn't working, we got Darren Radish. I guess I kind of said that in verse, but if that doesn't work out, we've got Hayden Fleury. If that doesn't work out, I guess Philippe Myers or something like that. So all of these, I wouldn't call them all NHL caliber players, but they're all guys that can slot in and play well in the positions that they're given. So I think it's just kind of going to be a gauge. I'd like to see them gauge what they have heading into the playoffs so they can be confident game one.
Yeah, I think you'll start to see things shuffle around the next few games as well. Bogo getting a few reps. Isamont, I have a feeling he'll get a few reps as well. But it wouldn't surprise me if Radish actually stayed in the lineup and just, maybe rest a guy here or there. Defense is so much ridiculously harder and just more difficult to play, smarter, more difficult to read than forward. There's a reason why guys that are playing defense have had maturation time in the AHL in order to start to build the experience and knowledge in order to play defense. You have to look at the game completely differently, where you can be a little bit more visceral when you're playing forward. And the adjustment from the A to the NHL, obviously we can see that Radish is making offensive strides without a doubt, but defensively, a few weeks ago we were talking about how he got burned on the outside. That obviously left an impression on him. That's not something that you want to have happen twice, or you'll never make it back up. You'll just get buried in the A and never be seen again. So I think that you keep giving him some reps and allow him to continue to find himself. But it would not surprise me one bit if game one against Toronto, we end up seeing Bogosian in his place. You got to give Radish enough time to be comfortable, but then when push comes to shove, you also have to put the lineup out there that you think will help you get the job done best. And that's probably going to be the veteran guys that have been there and done that 3 times over.
I don't think I'm just sold on Bogosian. He struggled a little bit defensively, which is what scares me. And I think if Radish plays anything like he has been this last week over these last couple of games here, I think he gets the nod and go into the lineup. Probably also the best way to look at this is Cooper sitting there thinking, I've got my lineup that I'm showing, and then I've got a bunch of ace of spades sitting in my back pocket ready to go in case we need to make a change, whether it's due to injury or somebody's just not playing well. Heck, we were talking about Balsers being the one that comes up and does something for the Lightning in the postseason, and now we've got a bunch of guys that might be sitting out and could come in for the Lightning if they need to change something up in the postseason. So they're in a really good situation, to say the least here.
Yeah, depth is so incredibly important when it comes to the playoffs. It's probably the most important thing when you're talking about being a complete team.
And despite my long tirade of if and or what might be whatever, what I would like to see game one is I would like to see Zach Bogosian playing, because I still do consider Darren Radish to be an experiment, maybe a project even. We don't exactly know what he is. With Bogosian, we do know what he is. You guys have sold me on liking Darren Radish and appreciating his game, and I do see him improving, but I'm still not 100% sold. I don't know that he is the better defenseman, because we've got the guys that can put the puck in the net. I will still say that Zach Bogosian is probably the better defensive defenseman than Darren Radish. We've got enough guys that can snap the puck around, that are going to be quarterbacking the power play. Jake, you're side-eyeing me hard right now. But I just don't think that game one of the playoffs is the time to start or continue your experiment. If things go wrong, if it's another 5-0 shutout like last year, maybe switch it up a little bit, but I just don't think game one's the time to start experimenting.
I don't know if I'd call this an experiment, though. Radish has been playing well the last week. I mean, he's been looking good. This is the experiment time right now before the playoffs start.
And you talk about a different player, though, between Bogo and Radish. How many times have you seen Bogo go behind the net? Not that he's the offensive net, the opposing net. Not that he hasn't gone down there once or twice before. But it seems like Radish extends the play and ends up getting that pinch to try to push offense twice a game, where he's behind the other team's goal.
Matt, what if we should put a friendly wager on this and see who's gonna perform better in the postseason? Is it gonna be Radish or Bogosian? And we'll have to think of something that could make this a little bit of fun.
Well, if we're just gonna go by points, I'm gonna default towards Radish. He just has that offensive mind.
We'll throw some defensive stats in there too. We'll break out the advanced statistics. Hey, let's throw it to our fans. Let us know at RBLR Lightning, what do you think the bet should be between how should we look at it? See if anybody can come up with something fun for the postseason.
You know what? I want to put up a poll on the RBLR Lightning Twitter and see who the fans would rather have starting game one, Zach Bogosian or Darren Radish. So I'm 51-49. So at least in where I'm leaning.
And see what the fans have to say. If who are you going with game one of the postseason against Toronto? Is it Darren Radish or is it Zach Bogosian? The bottom line is though, go ahead, Matt.
We've heard my side, we've heard Jake's side. Joe, where do you lie in this?
Regarding who's going to perform better?
Who would you want to start game one?
Oh no, it's Bogo. Without a doubt, it's Bogo. Don't let the nerves of the first game go to a guy that hasn't been in the NHL playoffs before. It's easy.
Not the smart decision. Who do you want to start? Is that your answer? Don't think like John.
Yes.
Okay.
Look,
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I want the team to win. I'd love for the player to team above player, right? I'd love for Radish to do well, but I just don't think that's gonna be in game one. I don't give him the opportunity. Let him see what the culture is like, what these guys go through night in and night out, especially because it's probably going to be away. The intimidation factor of a game one away when you've never played before, let the culture around him help him get calm and more comfortable, and save him for game two. Actually,
go 11.
That's what I would wager. I would wager that you'll actually see him in game two, regardless of the outcome.
See, I was just kind of chuckling to myself. I'm like, watch them go 11-7 game one. Have them both.
There you go. That's a possibility. But listen, don't count the Lightning out just quite yet for home ice advantage, because we still have a couple weeks left here in the regular season. And let's take a look at the Bolts' upcoming week. They're only a couple points behind Toronto. But guys, let's say they got a big week this week. You got the New York Rangers tomorrow, as of this recording on Wednesday, in New York at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, although that game is being broadcast on TNT, so be prepared for about an 8 o'clock start. And then they're in a back-to-back. They'll be taking on the New York Islanders at 7:30 p.m. as well. And then on Saturday, they'll be taking on the Ottawa Senators at 7 p.m. That game may be the Lightning looking to get a little bit of revenge after getting blown out the last time these two teams faced off. But the big game, obviously, against the New York Rangers, who are one of the top teams in the NHL. And, of course, the big game on national television. Guys, anything you're looking for the Lightning this week?
We had this debate a couple months ago. Who do you think gets these starts? Of course, it's Vasilevsky against the Rangers. It's a back-to-back against a good, desperate Islanders team. And then the pesky Sens, they're kind of falling out of it. I wonder if Vasilevsky gets the back-to-back and Brian Elliott gets the Sens again, maybe really does look for revenge this time. Of course, logic tells us Vasy, Elliott, Vasy. But I'd say that the Islanders are a better team, and I think the Lightning still would prefer to have that home ice advantage. So I think thinking tactically, they can ride Vasy for the two games, and also consider travel's a big part in back-to-backs. All they're doing is staying in the same city and driving a couple miles from Madison Square Garden to UBS Arena. I can see them going Vasy back to back.
Yeah, I mean that'd be interesting, but I don't think that'll end up happening. I think you get the goaltending battle right off of the Rangers game, and then let Elliott take the Islanders. I don't think there's any way that you let Vasy take all 3 games this week.
No,
you're pulling up into the playoffs, so I don't think that you let that happen. But I always love the matchup with the Rangers. It always is a game that you just never know how that one's going to go. Let me see if I don't have the standings up right here. So they're at 101 points to our 96. They're having one hell of a season, and that's got to be the start that I think that Vasy gets with the two New York games that's coming up.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe earlier in the season the Lightning did use Vasy in a back-to-back for both games, which this late in the season, I feel like you would want to start Elliott in the second one and give Vasy that rest and, have that postseason mindset. But normally I would say, Vasilevsky against the Rangers and then Elliott for the second half. But we've seen the Lightning do that before where they've played Vasy in both. I don't think they will, but it wouldn't shock me if it happened.
The last game was I think it's got something on my lens. Let me see if the last game was Saturday, right? It was a few days ago, with this.
Yes, they've had a gap.
Wednesday, so he's had a gap. And then it's 3 games in 4 days. So you can't, it's a lot of playing time to give him, you got to give him that first one, keep him in the rhythm. And then it's pretty common to go like Wednesday or Thursday, Saturday to finish it out.
All this to say that this could have been avoided if the NHL would have just scheduled a game for the Lightning earlier in the week. So
I completely like the scheduling has really been tough for the Lightning for the back half of the season. It's been something else, especially with all the back-to-backs, the 4-game weeks. I mean, this is we said it on the other side of the All-Star break, the second most difficult schedule in the NHL, and they still were able to hold on to the current playoff spot.
I will say this, the Lightning did have Cooper's Catch for Kids, his little fishing tournament that he does, or I should say little, it's a big fishing tournament, which is awesome, by the way. John Cooper has been here for 10 years. He's done so much on the ice, and he's doing so much off the ice as well. And I know that's a big event for them, and all the players go out to that as well. So I don't know if that factored into the scheduling at all, but they did have that event on Monday, which was a big success. So shout out to John Cooper as well for that.
And I am really, I'm kicking myself hard because I started the show with the joke about the fishing podcast, and I did nothing to incorporate Coop's Catch into that. I did nothing. I am -1 by me.
2 minutes for Matt Gannon for not incorporating it.
And listen, if there's any Distance Thunder that are in Key West that know a good place for the Lightning game that's coming for Wednesday, hit us up. Let me know. I need a home for about 2 hours.
Well, it'll be a TNT game, Joe. So you can find it at probably a decent sports bar. You don't have to find no regional broadcast or anything. So you might luck out just a bit.
Are there sports bars in Key West here down Duval? I mean, we're so far removed from even Miami. And I'm on Duval Street. Somebody hit me up and let me know.
Well, that's going to do it for us, guys, in this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe right here on YouTube so you don't miss out on things like Vacation Joe that we got rocking over here. We're on all podcast platforms, but don't miss it out on YouTube as well. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to follow us at RBLR Lightning so you don't miss out on future episodes as well. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Go Bolts!
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.